You meet someone and there's this undeniable chemistry. Every time you're together, there's a spark. The way he looks at you, the way he touches you, the way he leans in close when no one else is around. It's electric. And in those moments, it feels real. It feels passionate, intoxicating even. But when the moment passes and you're no longer in that shared space of physical closeness, something shifts. You start to notice that once the high wears off, he's not really there anymore. You don't hear from him unless he's initiating a meetup, and somehow those meetups always revolve around the physical. He's consistent in one way. He shows up when there's intimacy on the table. He sends the late-night texts. He calls when he's alone. He reaches out when he wants a fix of closeness, but when you need emotional support, when you're going through something, when you just want someone to talk to about your day or your thoughts or your fears, he's nowhere to be found. It becomes confusing because he's technically present. He doesn't disappear for weeks or ghost you entirely. He keeps the communication just alive enough for you to think something meaningful might be developing. But if you look closely, you'll see a pattern. He's emotionally unavailable but physically consistent. He's not the guy who asks how you're really doing. He doesn't dig deeper when you start opening up. In fact, he finds subtle ways to change the topic, crack a joke, or steer the conversation back to flirting. There's no curiosity about your inner world, no effort to really understand what drives you, what scares you, what inspires you. And even when you bring up something a little more vulnerable, he'll respond in a way that feels rushed, distracted, or worse, dismissive. What's tricky about this is that it doesn't always come across as cruelty or even neglect. Sometimes it feels like charm. He might say things that sound affectionate. He might compliment you often, make you feel desired, make you feel special in the moment. But look at when he shows up. It's not when you need someone to talk to after a bad day. It's not when you want to share something you're proud of. It's not when you feel lost or unsure about your next step and need a little guidance or encouragement. It's when you're dressed up, when you're alone, when you're within reach. The emotional absence is masked by physical presence, and if you're not paying close attention, you'll confuse one for the other. You'll start convincing yourself that he does care. After all, he's around. He responds to your texts. He makes plans to see you. He holds your hand in public. But ask yourself this: does he show up when there's nothing in it for him? Does he ask questions about your family, your past, your dreams? Does he stay on the phone when you're crying or scared or simply overwhelmed? Or does he suddenly become busy, tired, or not in the right headspace when things get too real? This kind of dynamic is subtle, and that's what makes it dangerous. You're not dealing with someone who's outright disrespectful. You're dealing with someone who's mastered the art of giving just enough to keep you close, but never enough to truly connect. And when that happens, you start second-guessing your own needs. You tell yourself not to be too emotional, not to expect too much, not to bring up anything heavy in case it drives him away. But that instinct to dim your light, to hide your feelings, to prioritize his comfort over your emotional well-being, that's the exact sign that something isn't right. You deserve more than someone who just shows up for the parts of you that are easy to love. You deserve someone who stays when you're messy, complicated, unsure, and vulnerable. Someone who sees all of you and chooses to lean in, not out. When a man consistently shows up for the physical moments but disappears when emotional connection is needed, you're not in a relationship. You're in a transaction. And the sooner you recognize that, the sooner you can stop investing your heart where it's not being held. When you're trying to understand someone's intentions in a relationship, it's easy to look at the big gestures, the flowers, the compliments, the time spent together. But often, the real truth lives in the conversations, the things you talk about, the questions he does or doesn't ask, the way he listens or doesn't. And one of the clearest signs that a man isn't interested in your heart, only your body, is when every conversation you have remains surface level. It never moves beyond the light banter, the playful teasing, the back and forth that feels fun in the moment, but ultimately goes nowhere deeper. You might talk regularly, even daily. He might text you in the morning, call you at night, but if you take a closer look at what's actually being said, it's all fluff. He compliments your appearance. He makes jokes. He asks about your day, but he never follows up when you say it was stressful or emotional. If you try to bring up something meaningful, something that gives insight into who you are or what matters to you, he changes the subject, shortens the response, or turns the focus back to something light, flirty, or sensual. It feels like every time you try to step into emotional intimacy, he pulls you back into something superficial. At first, you might brush it off. Maybe you think he's just not good at deeper conversations. Maybe you tell yourself it's too early to get serious. But over time, you begin to notice that you're always the one trying to steer things into real connection. You're the one asking about his past, his dreams, his childhood. You're the one trying to understand what makes him who he is. And he's happy to answer some of it, but he rarely reciprocates. He doesn't ask you those same questions. He doesn't dig into your answers. He doesn't seem curious about what shaped you or what you believe, or what makes your heart beat a little faster when no one's watching. There's no hunger to know you, only a desire to enjoy you. It becomes more noticeable when you reflect on how you feel after conversations with him. Do you feel seen, heard, understood, or do you feel like you've been in a loop of light talk that never really lands anywhere meaningful? When a man truly wants your heart, he wants to understand your world. He leans in when you speak. He remembers the details. He listens in a way that makes you feel like your words matter, your stories matter, your emotions matter. But when a man is only interested in your body, the focus stays on things that never require vulnerability. He'll talk about plans for the weekend, about what you're wearing, about what he wants to do when he sees you next. But he won't go near the parts of the conversation that expose something deeper about who you are. You might notice it even more when you try to share something personal. Maybe you open up about something painful from your past, or something exciting you're working on, or something that's been weighing heavily on your heart. And in those moments, his energy shifts. He either glosses over it, gives you a one-line response, or quickly changes the topic. Not because he doesn't hear you, but because he doesn't want to enter into emotional space with you. That's not what he came for. That's not what he's prioritizing. And so you're left in this confusing space where the communication is frequent but unfulfilling, where you feel like you're talking a lot but saying nothing. You laugh, you flirt, you exchange messages that feel exciting at the time, but afterward, you're still craving something more. You want someone who actually wants to know you, who cares about what's happening in your mind and not just what's happening between you. But instead, you're stuck in this cycle of shallow exchanges that never evolve into real emotional intimacy. It's not always obvious at first because surface-level conversations can feel good. They can feel like chemistry, like a strong connection, like a sign that the relationship is growing. But with time, you realize that while your body is being appreciated, your heart is being ignored. You're not being asked the questions that matter. You're not being invited to share the parts of yourself that you long for someone to hold. And every time you try to go there, you're gently nudged back toward the surface. That's not connection. That's convenience. When you're emotionally invested in someone, you naturally start thinking about what the future might look like. It doesn't mean you're rushing into anything or trying to map out a life together overnight, but there's a part of you that begins to wonder, where is this going? What are we building? Are we moving in the same direction? And when you care deeply, it's only natural to want clarity, to want a sense of where you stand. But one of the clearest signs that a man is only interested in your body, not your heart, is how quickly he avoids these kinds of conversations. The moment you bring up anything about defining the relationship, making plans beyond the short term, or discussing exclusivity, you can feel the walls go up. At first, he might laugh it off, say something casual like, "Why label it?" or "Let's not ruin a good thing." And maybe he even says it with a smile or a kiss, like it's something sweet or romantic. But underneath the charm is a clear message. I'm here for now, not for later. He thrives in the undefined because it gives him the space to come and go as he pleases, to enjoy the benefits of your presence without taking on the responsibilities of real commitment. He keeps things vague, and he's always got a smooth answer for why things don't need to be more concrete. He might even compliment you in the same breath, telling you how amazing you are, how much he enjoys spending time with you, But when it comes time to actually define what that means, he slips through the cracks. You'll notice that he's most comfortable in the present. He talks about what you're doing tonight, not what you're building together. He makes plans that are last minute, spontaneous, always centered around when he's available and in the mood. And when you try to discuss anything that requires him to show up in a deeper, more intentional way, he either avoids the topic entirely or gives you just enough to keep you hanging on. Maybe he says, "Let's just go with the flow," or "I'm not ready for anything serious right now." And while those words might sound honest on the surface, they're often a way of keeping the door open to physical connection without stepping into emotional depth. It becomes even clearer when you try to revisit the conversation. He gets uncomfortable, maybe even annoyed. He accuses you of putting pressure on him or of ruining the vibe. And because you care, because you don't want to scare him away, you start silencing that voice inside you, the one that wants clarity, the one that knows this isn't enough. You convince yourself to be patient, to give it more time, to wait until he's ready. But what you don't realize is that someone who genuinely wants your heart doesn't avoid commitment. They lean into it. They may take their time, sure, but they don't dance around your questions. They don't treat your desire for clarity as a threat. They welcome it as part of getting to know you, part of creating something real. A man who's only interested in your body thrives in the gray area. He benefits from your emotional investment while offering little in return. And the longer you stay in that undefined space, the more power he holds over how things unfold. You'll find yourself waiting for signs, hoping for more, analyzing every small gesture to try and figure out what it all means. But you already know what it means, because when someone truly wants to build something with you, they don't leave you guessing. They don't rely on ambiguity. They don't make you feel like bringing up your needs is a burden. Instead, you're left in a dynamic where the relationship serves him, not both of you. It keeps him comfortable, free to enjoy your presence when it suits him, without ever having to fully show up. He gets the affection, the connection, the intimacy, but without accountability, without emotional effort, without any real steps toward building a foundation. And meanwhile, you're left walking on eggshells, trying not to rock the boat, trying to prove that you're worth choosing, all while he's made it clear, whether through his words or his actions, that he's not ready to give you anything more than the present moment. One of the most telling signs that a man is only interested in your body, not your heart, is the way things shift after you become physically intimate. In the beginning, he's attentive. He texts often, wants to see you, compliments you constantly. He makes you feel like you're the center of his world. He builds anticipation, creates excitement, and makes you feel like there's something special forming between the two of you. But once the physical line is crossed, something subtle but significant starts to change. The energy that once felt magnetic begins to fade. The texts become less frequent. The compliments slow down. The urgency to spend time with you disappears. And suddenly, you're left wondering if the connection you felt was ever real at all. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's a slow decline. He doesn't disappear right away. He still reaches out occasionally, still shows signs of interest, but the consistency is gone. Where he once pursued you with effort and intention, now you feel like you're the one initiating everything. You wait longer for replies, plans are more vague, and the conversations lose depth. The warmth and enthusiasm that used to fill your exchanges are replaced with coolness and detachment. It's like something invisible passed between you, and now he's already emotionally moved on, even if he's physically still around. You might start questioning yourself, wondering if you did something wrong. Was it the timing? Did you misread the signs? Was he never really interested to begin with? And that spiral of self-doubt is exactly what happens when someone engages you physically without the emotional intention to match. Because you gave a part of yourself in the hope that it would bring you closer, and instead, it created distance. And it's not just about sex, it's about what it represented for you. It was a step forward, a sign of deepening intimacy. But for him, it may have been the goal all along. When a man is only after your body, the moment he gets what he wants, the chase loses its appeal. The mystery fades. The effort drops. He might not even be conscious of it himself, but his behavior shifts in a way that reveals his true priorities. And that shift is felt most deeply by you, because you're left holding on to what felt like a connection, while he's already emotionally withdrawing. He might still come around, still want to be physical, still keep just enough of a connection alive to maintain access to you. But emotionally, he's no longer invested. He's not asking how you feel. He's not checking in with you after a tough day. He's not building anything with you. He's simply returning when it's convenient, when it benefits him, when he wants something and knows you'll be there. This pattern can be incredibly confusing because you'll get moments of affection, even tenderness, that make you question whether he really is disconnected. He might kiss you like he cares, hold you like he means it, or say things that sound sincere. But actions speak louder than moments. And when someone's energy shifts after intimacy, when the emotional investment doesn't grow deeper, but instead begins to disappear, that's not someone who's building a relationship. It's someone who's using the idea of closeness without stepping into the reality of it. You may also notice that any time you try to talk about the change, he deflects. He acts like nothing's different, like you're overthinking. He reassures you with vague statements, but doesn't actually do anything to change the behavior that's making you feel uncertain. He might say he still likes you, that things are fine, but you don't feel fine. You feel more alone than ever because your emotional connection hasn't grown, it's shrunk, and you're stuck in a space where you're giving more and receiving less, where you're craving presence but only getting performance. What makes this dynamic especially painful is that before intimacy, he seemed so engaged. He asked questions, he made plans, he showed interest. And it's easy to look back on those moments and believe they were genuine. But when someone's interest fades, the moment the physical box is checked, it reveals that the emotional investment was never truly there to begin with. It was a strategy, whether intentional or not, to get what he wanted. And the moment he got it, the depth you hoped would follow never came. The attention drops, the communication fades, and you're left feeling like something was taken from you without anything given in return. When a man genuinely wants to build something meaningful with you, he naturally becomes curious about your life, who you are when you're not with him, what your passions are, what keeps you going, and what you've been through. He wants to know the people who matter to you, the challenges you've overcome, and the things that make you feel alive. But when a man only wants your body, not your heart, all of that is background noise to him. He's not interested in the layers of your life. He doesn't ask questions that go beneath the surface. He doesn't try to involve himself in your world unless there's something in it for him. His investment is limited to moments of pleasure, not moments of presence. You can sense it when you speak to him. You talk about your goals, and he doesn't ask follow-up questions. You mention a big event at work or something you're proud of, and he gives you a short response that feels obligatory. If you bring up your family or your struggles, he changes the subject or gives you a generic reply that makes it clear he's not really listening. He's not trying to understand what matters to you. He's not digging deeper. He's simply waiting for the conversation to circle back to something light, something playful, or something that eventually leads to another physical interaction. At first, this kind of disinterest can be hard to identify because it's not always overt. He might still smile when you talk. He might nod along and say the right things. But over time, you realize he's not remembering anything. You tell him something important, and the next time you speak, it's like you never said it. There's no sense of continuity, no emotional thread that carries from one conversation to the next. That's because he's not really there with you, he's just passing through. And when someone isn't investing in your life outside the bedroom, it's a strong sign that their presence is conditional. He's showing up for what he wants, not for who you are. You might find that your time together always feels like a detour from your real life rather than a part of it. You don't introduce him to your friends because he's never shown interest in meeting them. He's never asked about them. He doesn't remember names or stories you've told. He doesn't ask how your parents are or what your plans are for the future. And when you try to include him in your world, you're met with indifference or even resistance. He keeps things compartmentalized. He enjoys the time you spend together, but he doesn't want to be integrated into anything more meaningful. The conversations don't evolve either. They revolve around convenience, around availability, around when he can see you next. There's little to no curiosity about your values or your beliefs. He doesn't ask what drives you, what scares you, what you've learned from your past. He's not interested in the details that form the bigger picture of your life. And when someone avoids that kind of connection, it's not by accident. It's because they're not trying to build anything. They're simply enjoying what's easy and avoiding what requires emotional effort. What often makes this situation more confusing is that he might still be affectionate. He might say nice things, make you feel desired, and act charming in person. He knows how to make you feel seen in the moment, but not known. And there's a big difference between the two. Being seen can be temporary. It can be focused on the surface. But being known, that's about being understood, valued, and supported for who you really are. That takes time, attention, and care. And someone who isn't willing to invest that is showing you where his priorities lie. You start to feel it in subtle ways. The loneliness that creeps in even when you're with him. The feeling that you have to shrink parts of yourself just to keep things going. You stop sharing your accomplishments because they're met with indifference. You stop talking about your struggles because they're brushed aside. You stop inviting him into your world because every time you do, you're reminded that he's not really interested in being part of it. And eventually, you begin to feel like your emotional life has become invisible, like the only parts of you that matter to him are the ones he can touch, not the ones he can understand.